Hey, hi, it's Sunday morning. Am I not live on Twitter? Guess not. Mm. Hi. I don't know what Twitter is doing. Initializing video stream. Oh, well, keep initializing Twitter. I don't have time for you. What the hell is wrong with Twitter this morning?
Your show will be live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to Down to Earth with Harriet Kemmer. It's Sunday, and on Sunday mornings, we talk about faith and its impact on our lives. Down to Earth is a show in which we talk about the issues that matter. And today on our show, we're going to talk about the ending of a decade. That's right, the ending of a decade. Today is the first day of the last month of the 2010s. It's been 10 years, y'all. So we're going to talk about how our faith has improved or not, how we have seen some things rock our faith, and what can we expect and what do we think is going to happen in the next decade. I'm curious because the 2010s brought us uh, iPods, earpods, iPads, right? iPhones. Then the Samsung people went and stole that technology. I'm not kidding you. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not saying anything, but we're going to talk about that in depth. I'm not criticizing or saying anything. I'm just saying that Samsung did not exist. Samsung phones did not look like iPhones until iPhones were made. So I don't think it was iPhones who copied. I don't mind you. They say imitation is the most sincere form of flattery, I guess. But the thing is, if you're going to imitate me, don't be just like me. You know what I mean? That is injurious, and I find it is disingenuous. It's almost as if you're saying, I like you, but I don't want you to know that I like you. That's disingenuous. I like what you're doing, and I want to be just like you. So I'm going to copy everything that you do just the same. That's how the Samsung Galaxy phones are to me. I can't, the technology is archaic. I can't use them. I just simply can't. I don't know what I'm doing. You give me one, and I'm like, where do you go with this stuff? What do you do? It's like a throwback to like 2004, 2007. So there's a parody running through on social media about AirPods. Anyone knows what those are? AirPods. Right. Well, uh, AirPods are these nifty little were Bluetooth, the descendants of Bluetooth. I'm dying. And the ear, so you put them in your ear and you're driving. So this parody, this meme is running through on social media. I came across, and in the meme, this guy is saying that he has AirPods and he think he lost them, and he might have lost them in his Tesla. So it's the representation of it is that if you have AirPods, you own a Tesla. And he's sitting on the beach and he's like, what am I without my AirPods? Where is God? God doesn't like me. And then he's like, am I a poor because I don't have earpods? And then he found his wife with the Bluetooth device. Remember those? We thought we were so cool. And he's like, what is this? 2007. You've got to see this parody. I'm going to send it to my Twitter feed later on. You got to see this. It is hilarious. It's running through on Twitter and on Instagram. And I, for one, I am dying. Right? It's just crazy, this stuff. So in the last 10 years, technology sort of plateaued. I mean, in 2008, 2009, I remember when I got a Trio 650 phone. Anybody remembers that? You could type it on the screen. Anybody remembers that? And it had a stylus. I thought I was so cool. And then I bought a Bluetooth device. You couldn't talk to me. I had before they brought in the pink ones, I had a silver one that matched my silver Trio 650 with a stylus. You couldn't talk to me. I walked without my feet. I walked on air. My feet did not touch the ground. I was so cool. I thought I was the coolest. I was just walking and people were looking at me and the phone rings and I'm like, hello. And I'm carrying on a conversation. And the phone is not at my ear. So people were like, who are you talking to? And I'm like pointing to my ear. I'm on the phone. Oh, the 2010. Then we got iPhones. And I was with Verizon Wireless. And Verizon Wireless didn't do iPhones for a long time. Can you imagine? It sucked. So at one point I was like, maybe I should go to AT&T. I hated AT&T because they were archaic and old. But they had iPhones. And then finally, guess what? Verizon brought in iPhones. And it was white. Do you remember? My first iPhone was white. I thought I was so cool. I had a MacBook that was white. Then I had an iPhone. By the end of that year, I got an iPad. I remember taking a picture and posting it on social media, how I was surrounded by my favorite things for Christmas and all my pretty things. And oh, we were so cool. That was the beginning of the 2010s. We should have known something was up because we had survived the recession, 2008, 2009. So we should have known that there would have been repercussions from the recession. And then the church scandals began in earnest. That was the decade of church scandals. If any other decade had church scandals, it was the 2010s. And it was the 2010s, ironically, that either taught you faith or taught you that faith didn't exist. So you emerge from that decade with either a clearer idea that there is God or there is no God. But one way or the other, you were not iffy about it. Because of social media and the rampantness of it. I mean, social media was everywhere by this time. Guess what happened? Everybody now had access to social media. It was pervasive. You couldn't live. That's when we discovered Amazon was a thing. The 2010s brought online retail. The 2010s, Black Friday became an establishment. Prior to that, it was just, oh, it's the day after Thanksgiving. Okay, we'll just go shopping for some deals. But after 2010s, Black Friday became an institution. I kid you not. So many things happened. The proliferation of iPhones. Then anybody remembers the touchscreen BlackBerry? Oh, I was so cool. I was so the trendsetter. I had a touchscreen BlackBerry. You couldn't touch me. Anybody remembers BBM? BlackBerry Messenger? That was me all day. Oh, I loved it. And so the 2010s began in earnest. And it earnestly was moving, whether you liked it or not. It was not waiting on you. I can tell you one thing I learned looking back on it is that 2010s didn't wait for anybody. It's either you were going to keep it moving or you would be stuck. And if you got stuck, you would stay stuck for such a long time because the world had moved on. Once social media became pervasive, everything just moved at the speed of light. It's almost as if the 2010s accelerated. All of a sudden, those of us who knew we had a destiny and a future to match it had to develop and move as quickly with the times. If you didn't move, you were lost. In 2009, most of us joined Facebook. Facebook was already a thing, but it wasn't pervasive. 2008, then we discovered that through Facebook, you could develop an online community. You could reconnect with people whom you perhaps went to high school with and family members in distant parts of the world or distant parts of the country. We began to connect with people all over. For people like me, it became a platform. For people like me, social media became media. I have come to appreciate social media as media, not another form of media, but that it is media. In fact, social media is fast replacing traditional media. With social media also came streaming services like Netflix. Netflix was the pioneer here, right? I remember in 2011 when my daughter opened her first Netflix, she told me about Netflix because it was something college kids were doing because it was cheaper than cable. They didn't care about the news. We used to get notifications on their phones for the news. They don't care. They're in college. They don't care if the world stopped, right? And so social media became media. And over time, in the last decade, we're seeing where social media is replacing media. And I am for it. Traditional media is stuck up. Traditional media tells you that I know what's best for you. I know what's good for you. And what is good for you is what I am doing. But social media gives you a chance to express yourself. Now, suddenly everybody has a voice and everyone wants to be heard. No one wants to be left behind. Social media gave people that opportunity to voice their concern. Now we can communicate with our elected representatives much quicker and much faster without sitting down to write a pen, without sitting down to write a letter to the editor or to write a letter. You can simply go to their Facebook page, their media page, social media, and communicate how you feel. Social media created what we now call influencers, people who are paid to endorse products. Once upon a time, that was only for the rich and famous. That was only for people who were famous. Now, social media, YouTube, and other forms and other platforms have become a way for others to discover their talent, to share their talent with the rest of us. It has its good, it has its bads, but largely it has benefited humanity. Humanity has benefited from some form of social media. It has brought us all together. It has put us in real time. Now we don't have to wait for CNN to send a camera to London. Somebody can upload it to their Facebook page. They can upload it to Instagram or Twitter. And we can see that social media also brought us the Arab Spring, the uprising in Egypt that set in place. If they hadn't quelled it, it would have become something else. A lot of interesting things happened in the 2010s. I think the thing we'll most remember is media. But what about faith? While all of that was going on, there was a startling revolution taking place in the church. Just as social media intersected and affected every other area of our lives, it also affected faith. It affected the delivery of the message of hope and the message of the gospel. The ways in which we deliver that message today changed. We also got a bird's eye view into what the people who preach faith, what their lives are really like. And when the mask was taken off and lifted off, we didn't like what we see. That's why you have to be careful sometimes. When you expose yourself, you have to be real careful. You have to make sure what is underneath matches up with what you present. And what we found with this advent in social media was that for other people, they were exposed. What they presented was not what they looked like. Thanks to social media, a lot of people lost their ministries, lost their platforms because their lifestyles just didn't match up with what they were presenting. That might be a good thing. It was all in the shuffle. It was all in the shuffle. It was all going to happen, right? It also affected not just how we delivered the message, but also how we heard it. So we had more options. We can tune it out. We don't have to go into it. It changed the way we worshiped. We don't have to go into a building called a church. We can stream it now. In streaming it now, it gives most of us a chance to say, well, I don't have to go in. I can sit on my couch and stream it. It affected the people who own churches. They stopped making money because once they got you in the building, they were going to get their money from you. But if you are not in the building, their numbers are down. They stop acting big pimping and big balling, right? And they're not getting the money that they should from you. Because now you have more options. You can stream it. Now, what you will find is that a lot of preachers are on what is considered non-traditional Christian programming. They're on USA, they're on Lifetime, they're on ION television, they're on every other channel but Christian TV. Christian TV is almost non-existent today because it existed solely for the spreading of the gospel, so that a platform for Christian preachers to present their message. But with the advent of social media, you don't need Christian TV. If that is its genre, they did something wrong. Because guess what? Lifetime makes movies about women in situations, right? Is Lifetime still on? Yeah. ESPN makes programming about sports. Is ESPN still relevant? Yes. Cartoon Network makes cartoons for children. Is it still relevant? Yes. Why did Christian television disappear? If they make programming about Christianity, that's the key. It was not programming, it was platforms presenting the gospel. People have a unique idea about what Jesus Christ and the presentation of faith should be like. When it did not match up with their own perceptions, they became distracted. In the 2010s, we also saw the rise and fall of Joel Osteen. Remember him? America's preacher. Went everywhere, told everybody about hope. Well, a hurricane came through Houston called Harvey, I think. And Joel Osteen refused to open his church to let the people who had nowhere else to go, who were going to be flooded, to let them in. That affected his church, right? People were like, but you say you are a Christian. We had hope. 2010s also gave more preachers a platform. So now they felt like they could express their political beliefs. They were doing it slyly, but they were like, I can choose whomever I want to choose. Forget about separation of church and state. I'm going to endorse whichever candidate, no matter what the candidate did, no matter who the candidate was. They were still going to. So people became like, whoa, what am I supporting you for? If that is what you believe, then your belief doesn't match up with your message. Your lifestyle and what you express and espouse doesn't match up with your message. I can't support you. The 2010s were very interesting. But the unique thing for me is how we disposed of that. How do you put that together with what you know? And what I found was that the scriptures say that God remains the same, is the same yesterday, today, and forever. I found that to be true. Technology changed. The world changed. It's almost as if the world spun faster. That we saw all kinds of stuff. We became more aware of human trafficking. We became more aware of sex trafficking. We started using things, thanks to iPhone, we started using things on our phones called apps. We discovered that people also use apps for nefarious activities. They target children, they target women. And whilst all of that was going on, the world was spinning so fast, so very fast. I'm sorry, I'm also remembering 2010s was the decade when the tsunami occurred in Southeast Asia. While we were all in church on a Sunday morning, people were losing their lives. Remember that devastating tsunami, right? And so when you look back on it, you've got to, you take a look at it and you say, well, what I found was God stayed the same. It's almost like God sat down with his legs crossed and did this. He was still sitting there. Let me see what you're going to do. He didn't change. God didn't put his hand here and say, oh my God, the children are out of control. Look at them. They're all out of control. We went out of control. But God still stayed the same. The challenge that preachers have is presenting the gospel message in this new format. They're not trained for it. They don't know how to deal with it. They think if they can flood you with all the entertainment in church, that would keep people. No. People nowadays, people know the truth when they hear it. They know BS when they hear it. They know what is utter baloney when they hear it. But they know the truth. And because they're listening for the truth, they can discern pretty quickly that is not what they're saying. There's something nefarious in that. I've never gone anywhere and spoken and people doubt the veracity of what I say. So it tells me that people can discern if your lifestyle matches up. A few weeks ago, I was preaching somewhere, and I remember that audience was new. They didn't know me, so I had to set the stage for what I knew was going to come out of my mouth and for what I was going to say. And so I set the stage by preparing them, by telling them who I was, right? And I found it interesting because I've never found myself doing that. And I found it interesting because I was recognizing and acknowledging that times have changed. People want to know if what you are saying is true. So I had to present it in such a manner, the way in which they would receive it, which was setting the stage so they could know that my lifestyle matches up with what I am saying. If anything else, that's what we have learned from 2010. That if you're going to come to people, and this is true not just for Christian preachers, it's for anybody who is purveying any kind of message. If you are a TED Talks speaker, whatever you are going to say better match up with your lifestyle. You remember Jillian Michaels on The Biggest Loser, that show? It became The Biggest Loser because they were punishing people. And Jillian Michaels said that she lost weight naturally. What they found out due to social media was that she was actually a fat kid in school. She was fat in her teenage years, and she had surgery to get rid of the weight. It totally destroyed the authenticity of her message. The Biggest Loser became a big loser, and nothing happened. Do you see what I'm saying? So if anything else, the 2010 taught us was the power of authenticity. The fact that you have to be authentically you. If you're going to do something or say something, then it has to come from a place that is authentically you. If it is authentically you, people are going to see it. In the 2010s, we also discovered this guy, the guy who held a secret. You remember that? And he was taking people out into Arizona, into a commune. And then they found out he was a liar. He was ripping people off. If there's one thing we have learned, if you are going to distribute or purvey any kind of message, you have got to be authentic. Now, people might ask, well, how do I dispose of my faith? Well, where is your faith? Where do you put your faith? What belief system is attached to what you call faith? Faith is the belief in the power of something changing, that no matter what is going on, things are going to change. Faith is hope, because you haven't seen the evidence of it yet. You haven't experienced it, but you believe that it's going to happen. So you start acting as if it's going to happen. You ignore all the situations that are going on around you, and you act as if the future has come into the now. That's what faith is. So if you were to ask yourself, then what do I do with this faith? You continue to hope. You continue to believe. You continue to search until you find that which your heart locks onto. You're still looking for hope. Maybe it's not going to come from the Joel Osteens. If anything, the 2010s has taught us you can't believe in people who are iconic, because once the reality is going to show us, and it's not going to match up with what they purvey. I can never look at Joel Osteen right now. I used to be a fan. My friends, I was fandom special, right? But now I doubt the veracity and the truthfulness. I don't want to hear it now, because I now believe that it's not true. That what you're saying are just words you prepare because it's not coming from a place that is authentic. If anything, the 2010s has taught us about faith is to be authentically you in whatever you're going to do. If you believe you're called to be a singer, authentically sing. If you believe you're called to be a photographer, do it with authenticity. If you believe you're called to be a rapper, do it with authenticity. Now we're advancing into this new decade, and here has emerged another one. Here comes Kanye West declaring that he had an epiphany from heaven, and suddenly he has found Jesus Christ. Underneath all of that, what we found was that he was trying to sell an album called Jesus is King. So he's trying to create a movement around it. Time is going to reveal the lack of authenticity therein. Time will show, and it will destroy him this time. He will be completely destroyed this time. Do you see what I'm saying? So the 2010s has revealed that if you're not authentic, your message will not survive. There was Paula White. She was already fading. Here comes the 2010s. All kinds of stuff started emerging. So you start doubting the authenticity of the message. Christian television literally collapsed right before our eyes. We always thought something was wrong with that business model. Why did you have to buy all these stations when you could have just been like CNN? Just have one central place that you broadcast from. But their business model was different. And it worked for a while. It worked. That was their dream, to own television stations that broadcast the gospel. Well, times came and the 2010s revealed you don't need all of that. You just need YouTube. You need Facebook Live. You need Twitter Live. You need Instagram. 2010s have taught us that if you're authentic, you will find the platform and the ways to deliver. We've met a lot of artists. In fact, there's so many artists now, you can't keep up with it. I don't remember them all. I can't think of them all. Why? Because with the advent of new technologies, it gave people opportunities that prior to did not exist on a large scale. So now everybody is a singer, rapper, performer somewhere. Everybody has a podcast. Everybody has a show. Everybody has a radio. Radio is fading. Traditional radio is fading. I remember years ago when I first started in radio, I could see that the future was this medium. No one believed me, but I knew. So I kind of stuck with it even though I wasn't sure. I went on traditional radio. I remember discussing with the owners that they needed to change their formatting because eventually radio was going to be like this. They didn't listen to me. He had been doing it for 30 years. I was the new kid on the block. What did I know? He's now stuck with a bunch of radio stations across the country that he can't get any listeners on. When I told them to integrate Facebook and to integrate live into it, they didn't see the necessity. So I started streaming my own show from there. Then they cottoned on to it. Too late was their cry. Right? So what happened is they're dying. I remember telling somebody else who was an advertiser. I remember telling him that traditional radio in that format was going to go. I remember telling him, don't advertise your business on that format because they're going to go. They're looking for money. He didn't believe me. Guess what? It has happened. Radio One is gone. So Radio One networks across the country, mass scale, people who thought they would be on radio forever, their sole occupation was, I am a radio host. I am this. I am that. It's gone. Just like I thought it would. Jesus stayed the same. He's still sitting on the throne. He's been sitting on the throne for over 2,000 years. He's still going to be there. When you and I are replaced by different people, he's still going to be there. But even as the faces change, the message and the authenticity ought not to. In a lot of ways, what has happened with Christianity is they lost their authenticity. They lost the ability to convince and persuade people that what they say is true. Because over time, experientially, people realized a different experience. People realized that priests and fathers were touching young boys and young girls in places of worship that utterly destroyed people's faith. The Catholic Church experienced its greatest decline in the last decade. Literally, they're selling off their properties and selling off their churches. You can get a good one for something. Trust me. Catholic Church schools are almost a non-factor now. Why? Because, again, the pervasiveness of media proliferation showed people that their authenticity was lacking. I'm saying to you, for this next decade that is coming, if you think you're authentically you now, this next decade is going to open more opportunities. They say that technology has plateaued, that there isn't any further we can go. We've discovered everything about apps. The next thing is going to be robots. They're already working on programming robots that are going to replace people in like toll booths, right? Robots are going to be in supermarkets, cleaning the floors, packing the shelves. Those are all going to be robotized in just a bit, right? And we will be finding ourselves being replaced by robots. Robots are going to be programmed. They're going to get smarter at using artificial intelligence and programming robots to resemble and to look and sound more human. That's our next challenge. The next challenge is how the pervasiveness of artificial intelligence is it going to replace the pervasiveness and authenticity of the knowledge of Jesus Christ? Is it going to impact your faith? I know this is not a usual Sunday morning message. I know this is not a usual thing, but as we approach the next decade, it seems to me that we better start storing up, as the scriptures say, treasures for ourselves in heaven. We better get a lock on, what do I believe? What is it that I believe? What is it that I need to know? What is it that I should be doing? We better get that right, because the next decade, most things, most activities are going to be replaced by robots. You're going to walk into the bank and walk into stores, and it's going to be robotized. You know how they're holding up banks all over, at least in this part of the country. They're holding up banks like almost every other day. Banks are going to close, but what they're going to do, they still want to collect the money and still have a customer experience. A lot of those functions are going to be robotized. You're going to go to your favorite big box store and you're going to interact with a robot. You walk in, you plug in what you want, and a robot is going to come right up to you. You're going to go to the gas station, and some of us, our routine calls for going to the gas station, pumping gas and getting coffee in the mornings. It's going to be a robot that delivers that. How is that going to impact your faith? Are you going to believe in the power of artificial intelligence, or are you going to still have a belief no matter what happens? Chaos could happen in the next decade. What if something happens in the next decade? Something falls from the sky, a meteor falls from the sky. What if something other earth-shaking event happens? Are you still going to have your faith? If anything, the 2010s has taught us is we got to authentically believe or not. What if something happens? That's what happened to us in 2010s. Our favorite preachers, our favorite thought leaders, they had their struggles that we never were privy to. When it became exposed, did that affect your faith? Did that stop you from believing? I am saying that there are some things that are going to happen in the next decade that we may not have any control over. It may not be personal. It could be global in its impact. It could be confined regionally. Are you going to stop and believe? Right now, we have wildfires in California. California has been burning for decades now. When it's not fires, they have landslides coming down the pike. They have a serious problem in California. What is going to happen in the next decade? Do you really think that wildfires are going to continue? Eventually, there's not going to be anything left. It's going to be a wasteland. Well, what's going to happen? Are you still going to believe? Are you still going to be able to stand and believe? Right? Are you still going to say, well, God is still the same? If God was there when King James was king, then certainly God can be there now that I am king. Right? It's not the Lion King, some king, right? So now we have to ask ourselves, we've come to this point where, having seen all the chaos and all the change that has taken place in 2010s, in that last decade, we've also seen some good things. I mean, they still broadcast the award shows. Well, you don't even have to watch that anymore. You can go on Instagram and get a live feed, right? But now that you have seen all of that, what are we going to do about the next decade? Are you going to stop believing just because you looked at what happened? Here's the thing. Faith is personal. It's how you experience your faith and belief that matters. The expression of it that comes through you, that is what you believe. I am not excusing the behavior of some of these folks from the 2010s. But as we move forward, we got to pack it up with experience and say, well, their message might have been true, even though they themselves did not believe in what they were saying, even though they themselves did not demonstrate the tenets of what they're saying. I am still going to believe because my life story, my situation lined up with what I believe. the next decade is going to call for a deeper knowing, because so much is going to change. We see it already societally. We see it already socially. There's going to be more social change that for folks like me is going to destroy everything that you ever believed before. A new generation is coming up where this is normal for them. This is all they're going to believe. And this new generation that is coming up, this is all that this will represent. And for them, it's going to be normal. This is the next generation who are going to say artificial intelligence is just fine for me. This is the generation who are going to say, well, tradition doesn't mean anything if tradition is going to tear down what I believe. We've already seen social change in the form of men becoming women. It's not about being feminized. Men becoming women and women choosing to become men, changing their gender. There's going to be more of that. Is that going to affect what you believe? We're going to see more exponential increase in diseases because our environment is so toxic. At the same time, there are going to be medical breakthroughs. Are you not going to believe? You're going to ask yourself questions, just like I do. I'm like, with all of this technology, we could go to the moon. You mean to tell me people still get sick and you can't cure them? We're still going to ask questions. What if something fatalistic happens to us, humanity, here on planet Earth? Are you not going to believe? It seems to me that we need to lock on to what we believe so that for the next decade, whatever change might come, whatever is going to come, that you still stand firm in what you believe. I say to you today, on this, the first day of the last month of the last decade, that use these next 31 days to ruminate, to plan, and to strategize. Take your family, take yourself, put yourself, if you're a young person, take yourself and plan. Ask yourself, what do I want to achieve in the next decade? What is it that I would like to see for myself? Organize around that. If you have a belief system, find something to believe in. Be authentic about what you do. They're going to build robots, and the robots are going to know that you are you and you are not. So you are not who you say you are. That's artificial intelligence. It's going to shock us. But make sure that when you look in the mirror, you can say that I am me and what I stand for is what it is. The next decade is going to reveal more about ourselves. It's going to show us who we really are. Are you ready for that? There are going to be some new stuff that they've been working on that they have not told us about. If you think what you have now is mind-blowing, wait until you see what they have been working on for the last 15 years. What we're experiencing now is what has previously existed. They just released it. But what is coming is going to be greater. I say to you, strap on, right? Make sure you strap your seatbelt on and hold tight. Hang on to what you believe. Hang on to your faith in spite of the changes that will come. Hold on to what you believe. Find the authenticity in it. Let yourself stay in the experience of the authenticity so it will hold you and keep you through the changes that will come. I personally experienced change in the last decade that I never imagined. When the 2010s began, I thought my mother would be here forever. It never occurred to me that there would come a time when I wouldn't have a mother. Never occurred to me that my father could die. I mean, they're your parents, so they're, older than you are. But it never thought it would be my experience. But that happened too. That was part of the change of the decade. I had to watch as my children grow up. It took me totally by surprise. I knew they were going to grow up. I just didn't know it would be so fast. The change is going to come. Change has come. We're watching as our bodies, the time is flying so fast, it's not even taking toll on us anymore. We're 50 looking 30. We're 40 looking 20. I'm serious. You mean 40-year-olds now and they're like, gosh, I thought you were 25. People are 70 looking like they just turned 50. The advancing time is advancing, but it's not changing. And that is the key. Don't change who you are. Be authentically you. If nothing else, change. The circumstances around us will change. Everything else is going to change, but be authentically you. I heard somebody say yesterday, I was watching a show, my values. And I'm like, that's such an old fashioned word. People don't even say that anymore. What are values? You know what is today? Value is your money. How much money do you have? As I like to say, people are big balling on social media. People take selfies. They show you their houses, their cars, my new car, my new ride. I'm on my way to Dubai. Liar, probably on their way to the laundromat, right? People just big balling and showing off. But are you still authentically you? Some people have made billions of dollars, some have made millions of dollars. No matter what change comes, would you stay the same? To you, would you still be authentically you? My friends, change is going to come inevitably. If when we had began 2010, we had imagined that change would come, I think we would have been in a better place as we end the decade, right? So now that we know that change is going to come, let's hold on and don't change the power of you, the power of your authenticity. Stick with it, stay with it, and make sure that what is in you is powerful, it's authentically you, and hold on, hang on to your faith. This is Harriet Kemmick with Down to Earth. Go to my website, harrietkemmick.com, as well as go to the exodusfoundation.com. Help us to be a blessing to those in need. We provide relief services to victims of human trafficking. Help us to make that happen by going to our website, the exodusfoundation.com. Thank you so much for listening. It's Football Sunday. We're all going to football in just a minute, right? We're all going to do football. Thank you so much, everybody. Be blessed.